All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And guess what? So today I had a very special guest lined up for you all. And miracle of miracles, we are actually going to get a chance to have him with us anyway, remotely via a video. So I want to introduce you to Marvin. Marvin, you can tell us all about yourself. I just wanted to share Marvin with you because he is somebody who has worked with us in the past and has a tremendous amount to share with you. And I just want everyone to know that this is a virtual setting, in which case there's life going on in the background. So please, enjoy, be prepared for spontaneity, and let's go. So I'm just going to pass it over to Marvin, to you, and go ahead and introduce yourself to my students.
Awesome. Thank you, Kirsten. And thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Marvin Cadet. I am a project manager at the Mission Continues, which is a nonprofit that empowers veterans to continue serving in communities across the country. I work with a portfolio of 11 cities and 4 program managers we call city impact managers, to work with veteran volunteer leaders and nonprofits to solve community problems, whether it's community development, fighting food insecurity, creating more access to public spaces and things like that. I work on the logistics of making these awesome projects happen. And I'm really happy to be here with you today and share some of my techniques to make these type of things happen. A little bit more about me. I'm a Montclair State alum, go Red Hawks, graduated in 2014 with a degree in communication studies. And I've been with the Mission Continues ever since, and the studies that I've done at Montclair State, has been a great value add for my transition. Prior to that, I was in the military for 7 years. So I know what it is to be alert and vigilant, especially in these type of days. I'm here today to talk to you about human-centered design and particularly how to frame problems. Kirsten, if you could start the PowerPoint for me. Okay. Awesome. Sweet. I can see that that's up. Outstanding. So recently I've been certified in a practice called human-centered design, which is the discipline of developing solutions in the service of people. Whether it's products, whether it's websites, programs like run by nonprofits, the goal of having a human-centered approach is making sure that the people that we're serving are at the core of the problems it is that we're trying to solve. So any solutions that come out, if I come up with an idea in the shower, I really want to make sure that I'm talking to people that are going to benefit from the solution, use these solutions, as well as folks that I'm going to work with to make these things a reality. Before I just go ahead and do it. As I said, the goal is to make things better, and also with human-centered design, we're facilitating a transition from what is to what could be, and is being the current state of affairs and could be, being like the future state and what that could look like. We do this through storyboarding or prototyping and things of that nature. Some of the benefits of human-centered design, there are tons, but I'll point out 3 that I've had an immediate value add for my work, is prioritization. Again, as I mentioned, working in 11 cities and 4 different managers and 17 different platoon leaders and however many nonprofits, there's a lot of work that's happening at any given time, and every day that I show up to work, the first question I ask is, what should I be doing right now? But using these methods and in working with the stakeholders that I work with, I've been able to develop some structured techniques, in identifying what will provide the immediate value add. So I'm really grateful for that. visual artifacts to create a shared understanding. You know, it's really easy, you know, in our day-to-day lives to just say, hey, we're gonna build a bench and it needs to look like X, Y, and Z, you know, but like really having the visuals to go behind that has been a really big value add. And having the opportunity to allow other people to share their feedback in the development of that has been really good as well. And then finally, another great value add benefit for human-centered design is this idea called low fidelity. And what low fidelity is say I'm building an app or something, I want to build an app. You know, instead of presenting the concepts, you know, for my app in a PowerPoint or on a phone already developed, you know, I'm presenting these visual artifacts, these sketches, you know, and with these sketches, that allows me the opportunity to get feedback on something and not spend or utilize crucial resources in the development, you know, way ahead of time, you know. So you know, like in the app example, you know, if the button should be green or instead of blue, you know, like that's really good feedback that I can get in a sketch, you know, and not have to pay, you know, an engineer or utilize any sort of resources. So really, low fidelity just provides another layer and another opportunity to get critical feedback before making any major investments into a project. Sound good? I hope you guys are still with me. You know, it's a lot of information, but like we'll just go ahead and go forward from here. If you could hit the next slide, please. Okay. So one of my favorite techniques with the human-centered design practice is something called statement starters. And that's something that I'll talk through with you guys today. And after this lesson, you guys will be able to dive deep and get your hands dirty with, you know, and I'll say this as well, with all of the methods in human-centered design, whether it's, you know, affinity clustering or storyboarding, you know, all of these like really cool designy elements, if I had one thing that I was going to work with for the rest of my career, it would be statement starters. Just the ability to frame problems effectively is a great value add and helps facilitate all of this other cool work that you're doing. So the goal of statement starters, as I said, is to frame the problem that you're trying to solve. You know, in everyday life, you know, as issues are presented to us, you know, the natural reaction is to, hey, there's a fire, we need to douse it with water, you know, but it could be a chemical fire of sorts, you know, or something, there's information that's missing, you know, so a lot of times we want to like really spend time to collect additional information that may be missing so that we can frame the problem and have additional context. And we do that with how might we, like questions that start with how might we, or in what ways, you know, and the goal is to facilitate that transition from what is to what could be. If you could give me 1 second. And once we have this context and things fleshed out and a really sexy statement to ask, we can then include other stakeholders to be part of our cause. You know, next slide, please. So how do we do that? Here are some tips that I find are really crucial in creating these statement starters. The first is that you don't want to bake the solution into the question. You know, if like an example of that would be how do we make bread with 3 eggs? You know, the goal right there is to bake bread with 3 eggs and you essentially solved your own problem. You know, thinking of something, how might we bake bread that's lighter and fluffier or something like that would be a little bit more effective, you know. So like the key is not baking the solution into the question, literally. You want to provoke and challenge people with these questions, you know, as we're trying to frame the problem. It's really easy to like, okay, how do we solve for X when the reality is there's a lot of issues and variables behind that. So really provoke and challenge people on that. You want your questions to be transformative and work in absolutes, so like keywords to use would be eliminate, instant, 100%, another rule of thumb when it comes to transformative and absolutes is est is best, so instead of saying like, how might we make things bigger and better, how might we create the best solution for something that we're trying to solve. Also, create unrealistic goals. It's really easy to, or it's not really easy rather, but, in trying to solve a problem, instead of, solving for today, let's solve, like the goal is to solve for like the bigger issue. So I have this example here, where it says, how might we improve a service? Like, let's think through, how might we eliminate a service? How might we create products and solutions that heal themselves, that don't require this type of thinking? So just really diving deep into that, and taking another helpful tip in creating realistic goals, take things out of context, like for the sake of argument. And then finally, think beyond improvement of the current state. Just wanted to reiterate that more. What happens a lot is that, especially in this instance, you have a team that's been working on an issue for weeks or months so far, and know all of the ins and outs of a situation, but with human-centered design, one of the tactics here is to really think about it in a new way, take one variable inside of that problem and flip it on its head, or even ask, how might someone else think about this problem? How might Oprah Winfrey think about this problem that we have? Or how might Obama? I want to think through other people, but there's tons of people out in the world, as we think through these type of things. And then finally, I'll share a story from my own experience. So we, at the Mission Continues, we do a lot of work in Harlem, and we recently had one of our partners, they landed on a vacant lot that the community was super invested in and had a stake and wanted to see a lot of change happen in this particular vacant lot, which was huge. Like, I think I did the measurements, and it's about like 30,000 square feet, which, if you're familiar with New York, finding a space that big is like a godsend, and probably super costly. So the original solution that our partners wanted to do was, hey, let's add some garden beds to the space, some benches, maybe put up our mural, and then we'll call it a day. Like, we'll have done some great work in Harlem. But I pushed back and invited them to think different about this situation. Invited them to our office. Shared some of our lookbooks, which is a portfolio of work that we've done in the past, and resources, and just really set the context on what it is that the Mission Continues is capable of, but then also invited them to think through these statement starters, and gave them the same tips that I gave you guys, and what came out of that, was this beautiful question, how might we develop the most inclusive and welcoming environment? And that really transformed from, hey, we're going to put garden beds and benches, into what we're now working on over the course of the next 3 months, as things calm down, hopefully, to where we're going to put a movie theater into this space, to host movie nights. We're going to put in an outdoor classroom. We're going to add more to the current garden space that's already laid out there, really flesh out trails. And this is all inside of a vacant lot in Harlem, and it's all started from just being able to develop the right question, so that we could solve for it, instead of just running to like what's immediate and comfortable. And finally, I'll close with this, like with this example, and as you're thinking through statement starters, is that if you want a better solution, ask a better question, So thank you so much for having me, and I'll hand it back to Kirsten.
Great, thank you very much, Marvin. And now we're going to work together using your excellent start. Thank you.
Awesome.